this whole Signal snafu that happened with Pete Hegseth.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, if you don't know what happened, I assume he's talking about where a bunch of high-ranking government officials, like I'm talking White House level, were talking about war plans in an app on their phone rather than where they were supposed to be discussing it, which is in a secure bunker with lead walls. And they accidentally invited a journalist to the conversation. Now, the journalist has ethical standards and is not going to release the conversations unredacted. But what if they sent that shit to, like, Ayatollah Khomeini or, like, Putin?
Let me show you Scott Jennings, what he said on CNN yesterday when the story broke. Watch.
All right, moments ago, Caitlin Collins was reporting on her show, Scott, that there is shock inside the White House that this chat was texted to Jeffrey Goldberg.
Oopsie daisy, yeah, he was the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Like, honestly, they are so lucky that it didn't go to somebody else, like President Xi or something of China.
Are you shocked?
Well, sure. I mean, it's a shocking thing, and they've admitted that it was a mistake and admitted that it's authentic, so they're owning up to it. I think they're still, based on what I've heard tonight, trying to figure out how it happened. I'm not sure the National Security Advisor Walls even knows Goldberg. In fact, I don't believe.
Oh yeah, Walls, the National Security Advisor, he's the one that added him to the group chat. Oh my God, dude! And you know what's like truly, I don't know that ironic is the word, but kind of sickening. This is a way, way bigger scandal than Hillary Clinton's emails by far. And every one of these people said Hillary Clinton should be in prison because of how she treated, her email system or whatever. It's nonsense. This is real. And are any of them even going to resign? No, of course they're not.
Believe he knows him and has never met him. I did learn a few things in some of my conversations, if you're interested. One is that the Signal program was preloaded on a number of devices and agency computers in this circuit.
By the way, the algorithm is hitting me hard right now, completely ignoring me. So I'd appreciate if you watch to the end of the video. Having increased watch time as a percentage and a raw number is what pushes the video further. Also check out my books, owenmorgan.com. All right, back to the video. Yeah, Signal is end-to-end encryption and is pretty safe from like being hacked since they don't store any of this data on their servers or anything. But what if somebody grabs your phone? Like, there are a billion different things that could happen for this data to be taken. That's why you discuss it in a secure bunker in person, not on a phone. There have been some hacks where people have tried to hack into a physical server that was not connected to the internet. Like, how do you hack into something like that? It's in a secure facility, a bunker, where some people work, and there's no internet coming out of or going into this bunker. They wrote a program, these hackers did, that would connect to a system when plugged into the USB port and like gather all of the data from the hard drive. And hell, if they want, maybe even self-destruct the hard drive after a while. And this USB port or this USB drive has like a transmission device on it, so it can send a signal out. And it transmits all of the data from the hard drive of this secure computer to another site. So how do they get it in? They just drop like 100 of them in the parking lot. And inevitably, people who are curious that work there, like janitors or whoever, pick them up and they're like, oh, I wonder what's on these. They plug them into the system to see. That's just one way that people have to like hack into systems that are not even connected to the internet. There's one case with LastPass? Yeah, LastPass. That's the company. They stored a bunch of people's passwords and it was completely secure, 100% secure. There's no hole in the software or the hardware anywhere, but a Chinese operative started dating one of the employees at LastPass and moved in with him and waited until he kind of let his guard down, lived with him for months. And when she had the opportunity, he stands up, leaves his laptop, his work laptop open on the couch to go get food, that she made for him. And she goes in the other room and grabs the laptop and plugs in one of these little USB drives that uploads all the data to another location. This is why you do not talk about this shit on a a phone or anything. Even if the phone is completely secure, it's irrelevant. There's always a way to hack something, even if it's not connected to the internet. So anyway, that is why it is so deeply disturbing and ridiculous that they would discuss war plans like this on an iPhone app.
When they got there. So in their view, it was already in use. Number two, in some of the messages, they talk about needing to go to the high side computers, which is the classified system. So they clearly were knowing there was a line on what you could discuss in a chat like this versus classified system. Number three, there is a dispute over whether the term war plans is being exaggerated. And number four.
No, there isn't a dispute over that, first of all. Second, it was absolutely classified. Everything that they talked about was classified. The shit that they said is so classified, they should spend the rest of their lives in prison. And one of the people that had access to this Signal group, like one of the people that was in the group, was in Moscow while these conversations were taking place. Additionally, end-to-end encryption is pretty secure. I mean, I don't think it's been cracked yet, but there's a way to crack absolutely everything.
Look, I love the policy.
It's possible that it could have been like captured on, the cell signal could have been captured in Russia and saved to a system. And now they just have an encryption problem that they have to work out. Now, these war plans were on the lower side of important. There's a lot of danger in others having this stuff. But what about stuff that's genuinely should not be out? There's a ton of that stuff.
It's well executed. You've got a thoughtful policy discussion going on, and we did what the Biden administration would not do, stop these people from harassing our shipping lanes and our boats and our Navy. So good on the Trump administration for reversing a bad policy.
Oh my God, dude. This is just a joke. I'm reading this book about media training, basically how to do an interview at the moment. And you're supposed to go into this prepared with three things. Take a situation, any situation at all, and find the positive in it. As a Republican, I want to loosen doctor malpractice laws. I want to make it harder to sue a doctor for malpractice. What's the upside to that? How can I make this into a positive? Right now in Pennsylvania, some women come up with this statistic. 7% of women are up to 100 miles away from their nearest obstetrician. If we loosened these malpractice suits or these malpractice laws, we could decrease that. We could lower that from 7% of women to 0 or 1% of women. You're framing it as though you're making society better when you are absolutely making society worse. And so this is your goal. You've got this thing that you're fighting for. You reframe it into something that is really a good thing, and you come up with three things: anecdotes, statistics, and sound bites. I knew a woman named Peggy who had Medicaid, and Medicaid wouldn't cover blah, 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 and that meant that she was 110 miles away from her obstetrician. Now, what is she going to do when, she goes into labor or whatever? And then, there are always cases of literally every single thing, but she's the exception, not the rule. That's why anecdotes are important. You can focus on exceptions rather than rules. So you've got anecdotes, and then you've got statistics. 7% of women are 100 miles away or more from their nearest obstetrician. And then you have sound bites. Sound bites are things like comparing this to something, like keeping people 100 miles away from their nearest obstetrician is like keeping Band-Aids at your friend's house. Anyway, you're supposed to come with those three things, basically, for any issue. And that's what we're listening to this guy lay down for us right now. He gave us sound bites, he gave us statistics, and he gave us anecdotes. Well, I'm not sure. Did he give us anecdotes? Maybe he did. He said these people knew the line for where they shouldn't talk about classified materials because they said we need to go to this bunker or whatever. They may have said that, but they didn't go to the bunker, and they discussed objectively classified stuff anyway. And he framed it as a positive. We can get more done if we have Signal. Every government, this is normal. Every government phone comes with this. This is a statistic, too. Every government phone comes equipped with Signal. This is normal. Anyway, and then his soundbite at the end. What was it?
Program was preloaded on a number of devices and agency computers in this circuit when they got there. So in their view, it was already in use. Number two, in some of the messages, they talk about needing to go to the high side computers, which is the classified system. So they clearly were knowing there was a line on what you could discuss in a chat like this versus classified system. Number three, there is a dispute over whether the term war plans is being exaggerated. And number four, look, I love the policy. It's well executed. You've got a thoughtful policy discussion going on, and we did what the Biden administration would not do.
There you go. Deflect to something else and talk about how great a job these people are doing or how they're improving this situation.
Stop these people from harassing our...
This is another example of a soundbite. You're pushing the conversation in another direction. Look, I know the Catholic Church is guilty of taking advantage of children and protecting people from that, but all the left has cared about for 5 years is putting trans people in every bathroom from here to Texas. You know, deflect, turn it into a different conversation, and blame somebody else. That's a soundbite. Every time this comes up, deflect. The fact that there is a trans panic right now is an indication that Republicans are doing some really fucked up shit, and they don't have any other excuse for why, and they have no way to rehabilitate their image but to blame trans people for their problems, basically.
Shipping lanes in our boats and our Navy, so good on the Trump administration for reversing a bad policy.
All right, so Lance, let me show you, before you comment, let me tell you.
So here is my problem with this. Like, as a journalist or as like a political commentator, are you going to allow those sound bites that are very obviously designed to be propaganda? Are you going to allow them on your platform? As CNN, are you going to allow it on as CNN? Like, are you going to invite this person on to just propagandize? And in my personal opinion, I believe that you should not give them your platform to propagandize unless you're going to rebut them actively and in real time. You should not invite them on for a conversation because they're just going to propagandize and lie. That's it.
Again, in case you didn't.
Like the way that I do it, I'm sorry, I'm a step back. Like the way that I do it, I debunk as we go. I pause, I talk for 10 minutes if that's what it takes to cover something that they're doing. And then I let them talk more. If it's being rebutted, then I think it's fine.
From harassing our shipping lanes and our boats and our Navy. So good on the Trump administration for reversing a bad...
They could have invited literally anybody on to do this, anybody that's media trained. This guy's very obviously media trained and is doing the formula, you know, anecdote, statistic, soundbite.
So, all right, so Lance, let me show you, before you comment, let me tell you again, in case you didn't hear it, this is what Caroline Leavitt said. Jeffrey Goldberg's well known for his sensationalist spin. Here are the facts about the latest story. Number one, no war plans. Scott Jennings just said that. We're discussed. No classified material was sent through the thread. Number three, the White House counsel's office has provided guidance on a number of different platforms for President Trump's top official to communicate.
It's super risky to just flat out lie, because sometimes if you flat out lie, the audience turns against you. Like if you're very clearly just gaslighting, people don't usually appreciate that very much. But we're at a point in a political situation where certain people, not everybody, but certain people can just brazenly lie to your face and face zero consequences for it. Donald Trump can just lie. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary or whatever, I think, she just lie. She can just twist shit around until reality no longer exists, basically. And I guess that's the strategy that she's taken. She's not even bothering with the trifecta, if you will, of anecdotes, sound bites, and statistics
as safely and efficiently as possible. As the National Security Council stated, the White House is looking into how Goldberg's number was inadvertently added to the thread. I think that's a good idea. Thanks to the strong, decisive leadership of President Trump and everyone in the group, the Houthi strikes were successful and effective. Terrorists were killed, and that's what matters most to President Trump. Having said all that, Lance, this is still not a good thing that happened.
All right, let's rehearse what we know, Gene.
Yeah, go ahead.
We went through this before. The Trump administration is tearing apart the deep state.
Yes.
And so the last time he was in office, the first thing the intelligence community did, this is an intelligence community setup. This is a setup and a preloaded chat thread.
Oh, please. They're saying that that they're being framed. Really?
That was deliberately and intentionally back-channeled to the Atlantic because...
It wasn't back-channeled. There wasn't a back channel happening. Dude was added to the group chat by the National Security Advisor, okay? Mike Waltz or whatever. There's no back channel here. It wasn't leaked or fed to somebody else. Reframing is another media technique that they use. Got to reframe it so that everyone else is the bad guy and that you're the victim of this situation.
They all work as a deep state syndicate. Remember, they leaked stories to the New York Times under Comey. This is how they do it. They want...
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't remember that, but whatever. This isn't a leak. This is Donald Trump's chosen people being fucking morons. Distinct difference.
The media to play gotcha and embarrass. Now, here's what they're doing. They're going to go for a scalp because what the deep state did was they went after Flynn. They set him up. Once they got his scalp, they began...
Oh, dude, Michael Flynn is a disgusting piece of trash. He is an evil human being. He was the national security advisor, I think, under Obama, and was working as a foreign agent, basically, on behalf of Turkey. He agreed to basically hunt down and capture a United States citizen and deliver him to Turkey for execution on behalf of Erdogan. Secretly. He did all of this secretly. As a member of the U.S. government, he was using his position as a member of the U.S. government to do this. Like, illegal does not even begin to describe this situation and what he did and what he was up to. He also worked directly with Russia to help Trump win the 2016 election. He would not have won if not for Michael Flynn meddling and helping Russia rig everything. So Michael Flynn is an evil human being who is actively a traitor to the U.S. government. Like, that term, traitor, is overused a lot, but he is treasonous, in my opinion. Like, actually full-blown aid and comfort to the enemy treasonous. But, you know, people believed that he was Q because he took the QAnon pledge, and suddenly he's everyone's best friend on the far right.
Began to have an unraveling. You start having people backing up from each other. Trump's team is a tight team. What we have to watch is that they don't start turning on each other. This is the nullification project. They were doing it with judicial activist judges. They're continuing on that front. Now they're going to go in the intelligence community to try to take down 1, 2, or 3 of Trump's appointed people and see if they can dismantle the agencies.
Brother, I don't think anyone's trying to take apart, like, Trump's people or whatever. They literally, like, shared classified information with each other on an app on their phone and discussed it actively. Don't you love how he reframes this shit compared to how it was framed with Hillary Clinton? It's just wild to me.
Our people have to see this for what it is.
Yep.
Don't look at the news cycle about, a mistake. Look at it like warfare inside the government trying to take down Trump.
Yes, and this may seem, and I'm
Wow, that's nuts, dude.
glad you brought up General Flynn because it was about the same amount of time after he was in office when this happened again. So let's take a flashback. Talking about Jeffrey Goldberg, let's tell the stories. Let's go back in time. I'm going to give this to Rick Green here when we come back. Look, this seems vaguely familiar. Both right before an election. Watch.
At issue is a report by The Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg based on accounts from anonymous sources. Goldberg writes of the morning Trump was scheduled to visit an American cemetery near Paris, where American Marines are buried. This is a piece of the article. In a conversation with senior staff members on the morning of the scheduled visit, Trump said, quote, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers."
Suckers and losers, yes. And we found out who that anonymous source was. It was, oh my God, who the hell was it? Rex Tillerson, the oil executive? Is that who it was? I don't remember now. No, he was one of the generals. Yeah, he was one of the generals of the U.S. military. Not Mark Kelly. Somebody else. Anyway, yeah, he revealed that. And was this in 2024? This is way earlier than 2024. This is 2020, I think. And it's absolutely true. 100% true. Like, this is absolutely something that Trump would say. Of course, it's not hard to believe. They're pretending to, like, why are you even bringing this up exactly? What's the point of you even bringing this up? What does this have to do with you, like, addressing these accusations that, like, they used an app to communicate war plans with each other? What does this have to, how are they connected exactly?
In a separate conversation on the same trip, Trump referred to more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives at Belleau Wood as, quote, suckers for getting killed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
Earlier today, Goldberg responded to the pushback from the president and several of the president's aides.
Oh, I see. Because it was Goldberg. It was the same guy. This is absolutely true. I don't understand. You're trying to discredit this? This is all real.
I stand by my reporting. I have multiple sources telling me this is what happened.
Here's what Kelly told The Atlantic magazine about a White House conversation after Trump told Kelly he wished he'd be more like German generals. Kelly said, quote, "Do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals." And Trump said, yeah, Hitler's generals.
Jesus Christ, dude. The Kaiser's generals, meaning like Wilhelm II, like the monarchy's generals before Hitler took control. That's still really bad. Oh my God.
What do you think that this is important for voters to know about? Is that one of the why did you do the story now? Is it you finally got the confirmation of these stories recently?
Yeah, I got confirmations and I got on the record interviews that I needed to make sure that the story was solid, including an interview with General Kelly. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Both those, if you remember, they've both been debunked.
No, they were not debunked. What are you talking about? This is 100% real. This really happened. Why do you think that's been debunked exactly? Who told you this is debunked? Your ass certainly didn't debunk it.
Never said, Rick Green, what you're seeing here, The Atlantic is not a journalistic bastion of truth.
Yes, it is. I mean, they've been pretty trustworthy, The Atlantic. I haven't heard anything negative about The Atlantic. What are you talking about? And either way, we're talking about this one guy, and he has been very, very trustworthy in the past. And also, I guess their strategy here is just to claim that everybody else is lying, that they're not lying, you're lying.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, Lance was 100% right. We should see this for what it is. This is war, man. This is intellectual warfare, and it's the deep state trying to shut Trump down in any way they can, whether it's these activist judges at the district level or using rogue agents within the intelligence community, or perhaps even some of those calling the shots prior to Trump
Oh, please. This is just conspiracy theory nonsense.
Coming in, or some of these, what the Soviets would call useful idiots that are these reporters that are being used in this way. But let me zoom out for a second, Gene. Not only is that stuff manipulated, the American people and our audience for sure, look at the difference. They're trying to create all of this smoke and mirrors over this little, it wasn't a snafu, maybe what happened, big deal compared to the types of things that the Biden administration.
Oh, yeah, and deflect. This is them deflecting again. Nobody cares. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what Donald Trump just did. You know what? You're complaining about what the Biden administration did. Okay, great. So we can agree that this type of thing is wrong, right? I mean, I'm not even going to acknowledge your complaint about Biden or whatever he did, but two wrongs don't make a right.
Allowed to happen. Didn't stop the 13 being killed whenever you had the horrific withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Deflect. That was Donald Trump's withdrawal plan And he followed it pretty much exactly because it was actually written up under Donald Trump, with Trump's generals, and it was a fine plan. In fact, it's impressive that only 13 people died in the withdrawal.
Afghanistan when they could have. Didn't use the intelligence that they knew about the lab leak for COVID, and
That didn't happen. There was no lab leak. It was just made up. Again.
millions of people end up dying as a result of their failure to take that information and get it to the American people. So
This nonsensical trash. There was no lab leak.
I mean, compare the apples and oranges here that we're actually talking about. Even if this reporter was right, and even if you had these leaks or any of these little things that happen, okay, yeah, human nature, you're going to have mistakes, whatever. But
no, this isn't one of those little mistakes. This is literally communicating war plans that shouldn't be discussed outside of a secure bunker, discussing it in an app, and just adding random people to it and nobody like checking to see who is added and if they should really be there. Pretty distinct difference.
we need to keep in mind, zoom out and compare that to what the Biden administration and their intelligence community did or did not do while they were in charge, and be thankful for a snafu as small as this compared to what they had.
But
well, I appreciate that he's that he's acknowledging that it's real, at least. I mean, the White House acknowledged that it's real, I believe. Come to think of it, I'm not even sure why they acknowledged it was real. I think the White House's best bet might have been to just lie, because they can lie brazenly with absolutely no consequences. It's been proven. Like, they've done it time and time again. And it's kind of interesting to me that they've chosen to go this route instead.
they're going to jump on anything. And I think going back to Lance's comment, Pastor Hank, they're going to jump. This is the deep state. They're in panic. They're going to grab for anything. So
I would love to know what would turn them away from Donald Trump. Like, what would he have to do to make people stop supporting him? If he put classified war plans in a private group chat on his iPhone, would that do it? Obviously not. If he literally murdered somebody on Fifth Avenue, would that do it? No, clearly it wouldn't. In fact, I wish that's all he did. There's literally nothing that Donald Trump could do that would turn the majority of his supporters away.
likely, just an opinion, somebody's assistant preloaded something that was connected like Lance said. Oh, yeah, here, just go. I'm sure that's not going to happen again.
Oh, it's not the fault of Trump's national security advisor and stuff. It's everybody else's fault. It's not me. It's everyone else. It's somebody other than the people that I care about. Totally. They have got to. They can't take responsibility for shit, can they? You know that there used to be a little thing. I think maybe Lyndon B. Johnson put this plaque on the desk, on the Resolute desk. He kept it there, and I think it said "The Buck," because the buck stops here, i.e., I am responsible for what happens. It's my fault, it's my doing, and I need to figure out how to handle it. It doesn't matter if I was directly involved. If something bad happens, it's on me, because I am the leader of this whole thing. They say blame rolls downhill, credit rolls uphill. A good leader takes blame and tries to correct the problem. That's why the buck stops here plaque was there, and Reagan removed it. I guess he didn't feel that the buck should stop there, huh?
What do you think, Pastor Hank? We're looking at this snafu on Signal.
Well, listen.
They keep calling it a snafu.
Brilliant commentary from Lance and Rick. I think they nailed it. And so I don't have much to say in that regards, but I do know this regarding what you're saying about the deep state involvement. Listen, the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the deep in the book of Genesis. And what the deep state doesn't realize is they are dealing face to face with God himself. God is serious about his righteousness. He's serious about his justice. Genesis 7 even says that the fountain of the deep was broken up. And when God was dealing with Noah and the corruption. Well, the deep state has been part of a lot of corruption, and God, once again, like Genesis 7, he's busting it up. Also, I do believe this, Exodus 14, God is on purpose setting up traps. And to Rick's point, I think some of these traps are this. Listen, what about Hillary's email servers?
What about Hillary's email servers? Why are we talking about that? Isn't Hillary dead or something? Like, she is not involved in literally anything at all. I have no idea why we're talking about Hillary right now. I'm so lost. But you notice they're comparing this situation to what happened with Hillary. So they seem to recognize that it is very possibly like just as bad. It's at the very least in the same realm, and it's something that everybody should be like paying close attention to.
Remember that discussion? Nobody really from the media really investigated that, and that was a brief.
Are you shitting me right now? Nobody investigated Hillary's emails? That's all I heard from Fox News for like 6 months straight. But her emails. But her emails. But her emails. Buttery mails. Buttery mails. That's all I heard about was buttery mails. My God, I had buttery mails on the brain 24/7 after that.
How about the handshakes from
risky search? Buttery mails non-stop for months, nay years. Some people are into that, but I don't want to hear about buttery mails 24/7. Please. It's irrelevant.
From the fake previous administration that was literally shaking hands, giving billions of dollars to our enemies.
This is trash. It's just completely fabricated. This is not true.
I think that's what the fake news needs to go back and look at, that they once again are trying to spin it and create stupid narratives, but the American people are smart enough to see.
So he's using more media tactics here. Deflecting, blaming somebody else for something completely unrelated, complimenting the audience and saying you're stupid if you believe this, or more accurately, not saying that, you're smart if you don't believe this, is what he's saying, really. It's like this show is a, what do you call it, a clinic in how to propagandize to an audience. And it's actually very fascinating and useful. And you know what? Why else I like watching this? Because it gives me insight into what Republicans are afraid of right now and what's on their mind at this immediate moment. Like what they think is going to adversely affect them. You know, this is Kenneth Copeland's TV network. They have millions, nay, billions of dollars to spend on market research and stuff. And they know what's going to hurt them, like politically. So the subjects that these people zero in on are extremely important to watch. The subjects they zero in on are being discussed for a reason. They think that this specific thing is hurting them or is going to hurt them. The classified documents thing, which probably a fair assumption. Anyway, it seems to me that we should be zeroing in on this right now.
They once again are trying to spin it and create stupid narratives, but the American people are smart enough to see exactly what they're trying to do.
And I love that, Lance. Hank, you're right. We are smarter this time around than we were coming into.
There you go. They're saying you're smart if you don't buy this. You're smart if you don't think that Donald Trump and his people are idiots for like passing around super classified info on a classified server.
2020 and 2017, when all that happened, we were all going, what's going on with General Flynn? We got this. All right. So nothing, we talk about government grinding to a halt and moving slowly, but Lance, guess what? Overnight, we're able to have a congressional hearing about what happened yesterday. Watch this.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels.
I mean, did you ever wonder why this congressional hearing happened so quickly? You think that the only time congressional hearings happen is like to lie to people or something? How many congressional hearings did they have on Hunter Biden? Completely irrelevant, like anybody gives a shit. And how many dick pics did Marjorie Taylor Greene bring of Hunter Biden to put them in the official public record? Countless. I think it was like 3 or something. I'm not sure. You're complaining about congressional hearings right now? You've chosen this moment to complain about them when you're probably sitting there ogling over the images that Marjorie Taylor Greene was putting up?
So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible.
Wait, who is this person? This is Ratcliffe? I think it was Waltz that invited the journalist in, to my knowledge.
And lawful, and did not include classified information. Your question was, have I participated in any other group chats sharing classified information? To be clear, I haven't participated in any Signal group messaging that relates to any classified information.
That's a lie. You were in the Signal group chat. You're lying. But these people know they can get away with lying. There was a time when if a politician lied to your face, they would lose the trust of the voters and they would lose their elections and everything moving forward. But we're at a point in time now where nobody gives a shit. They can lie until they're blue in the face and nobody cares. And everyone, unfortunately, now knows that that's the case. They can just lie and lie and lie.
At all.
Okay. Director Gabbard?
Senator, I have the same answer. I have not participated in any Signal group chat or any.
That's a lie. You were in there. And you're the director of national intelligence or something? Gabbard is, right? National intelligence was being discussed in this group chat. This is definitely your business. If you didn't know this was happening, then you are about as incompetent as they come. But we knew that, of course.
Any other chat on another app that contained any classified information.
All right, Lance, give me your thoughts. I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry. It is convenient, though, that all this breaks right before they already have a session set up to discuss.
Yeah, super convenient that Donald Trump just happened to, well, his people happened to discuss classified info in a group chat on their phone. That's convenient, huh? Yeah, totally.
But aside from that, where do we go from here, Lance?
Well, you know what amazes me, though, is, and it's a bit of a conundrum to me, Gene, how you could have 4 district judges. That's we got 900 of them, I guess, presiding over 700 districts in state courts. They're the lowest level judge. And we've got them blocking Trump's agenda on the military with transgenders in service. We got him blocking his agenda on deporting illegals.
I don't think that anyone is blocking his agenda on these things. They're making sure that the law is being followed, the Constitution and people's rights are being protected. That's not them blocking his agenda. They're confusing doing the right thing with opposing Donald Trump. They're conflating the two, I guess.
They've got 4 different injunctions basically stopping, and we have not had, with the whole federal government literally under siege and potentially being shut down, we haven't had a meeting like this yet, where we've got these district judges sitting in front of a news panel or the media. I'm trying to understand, why is it that Republicans, with all the power they've got, can't convene media circuses like this? Why is it the moment, face it, and
it's because it's not important, first of all. They're not the ones that are, let me rephrase. Democrats are not out there doing anything that's criticizable at this moment. Republicans are front and center in attention. There is no propaganda machine that you can turn on for them at this immediate moment, first and foremost. But give it time. Republicans absolutely will turn on that propaganda machine once again.
Unpatriotic, stinking liberal journalist wants to expose personal conversation. If
that's not personal conversation. That was actually government conversation that should be subject to FOIA requests that we should be able to access. Not right now, maybe in 20, 30, 50, 70 years, but it should actually be saved so that it can be archived by NARA and accessed later. Like the JFK files, for example, everything, letters, conversations, emails, or well, not emails, I guess, mail. It was all saved in national records so that we can go back and look at what was said and figure out exactly what actually happened. That shit should be saved. It's not private conversation. It was public conversation in a classified, well, it was supposed to be classified, but it wasn't in a classified context.
Man was a patriot. He'd say, whoa, whoa, guys, check out what you're doing. I shouldn't even be in this conversation. But he didn't do that. He said, gotcha, and I'm going to expose you and make America look weak. And nobody ever bothers to say, what a...
Make America look weak. Wow, there's your soundbite. You're making America look weak. No, we're making Donald Trump look weak, actually. And you're conflating those things. Trump is America, apparently.
Jerk that journalist is on the Atlantic, the editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, for even being there.
That's right.
Peeping Tom that he is.
He was added. What are you talking about? He's a peeping Tom. Are you serious? He didn't ask for permission to access it. They added him to it. I don't know this for sure, but I heard that after the conversation, before he left, he wrote, "New phone, who dis?" and then left. I don't know. We're going to have to check that out, too. We got to fact check that one. But I would love it if that's what happened.
Chief Jeffrey Goldberg, for even being there.
That's right.
Peeping Tom that he is, spying in the conversation and then publishing it to the detriment of America's security.
He didn't publish it. He showed it to other journalists to verify its validity, and those other journalists validated it and said, yes, in fact, this is real. They did not release the contents, not all of the contents. The stuff that could really be considered dangerous to release, he didn't release. This is just like made up. He's lucky that this didn't go to Ayatollah Khomeini, in all seriousness.
So true. And by the way, Lance and I have been the fodder of the Atlantic already.
Well, that might be a little personal there. That's true.
It might be just perhaps a little personal for us.
Perhaps it's because Jeffrey has been less than flattering of us that I'm taking advantage of the opportunity.
But thank you.
Wow.
For that segue, because I want to go to these judges. Watch what Senator Josh Hawley had to say last night. Watch.
I understand you have legislation in the works that could address some of the issues that are plaguing this administration coming out of what are activist courts and an activist agenda.
Josh Hawley is a monster. Also media trained. So he follows the formula of anecdotes, statistics, sound bites, and flip it around to blame somebody else.
Absolutely. The key thing to do here, Laura, is to end the ability of these district courts to abuse their judicial authority by issuing these so-called nationwide injunctions. Laura, I don't think they have that authority properly.
That is literally what the courts are supposed to be doing. Laura Ingraham is a lawyer. She knows that. These people are just lying and intentionally destroying the United States. They are a cancer on society. I don't know how I'll say it. Let me rephrase and get more specific. The style and tactics of their propaganda is a cancer on society. They are leeching off of society with this type of shit and destroying it more and more every single day. And we, you and I, are the victims of their lies.
Properly speaking, under the Constitution, Article 3, what they're doing is they're purporting, these judges, they're purporting to go out and to bind parties and individuals who aren't before them. They're purporting to bind people who aren't in their district.
So he's saying that they don't have standing, or like, this is just not how anything works. And he knows it's not. He's presumably relying on the fact that Fox News viewers aren't going to have any idea how it works. He's relying on their ignorance in this whole thing to like get them to believe the nonsense that he's spreading.
We only have one Supreme Court that can bind the whole nation.
That's just not how it works. We have a ton of federal courts. Supreme Court is just an appeals court all the way up to the top. And by the way, you know how Justice Roberts is viewed as a kind of a swing vote right now, if you will? Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett have both been swing votes. Roberts is the one that picks the cases. So everything that has happened up to now, because of the Supreme Court. Like every bad decision the court made is Robert's fault. Even if he voted against it, it's his fault. If he voted against it, it's because he knows that everybody else is going to vote for it. So he's comfortable in trying to maintain his own legacy by making himself out to, like, making it look like he's not as much of a monster as he truly is.
District courts aren't supposed to be able to do it, and yet President Trump has been subject already to 15 separate so-called nationwide injunctions.
Yeah, that's how it works. You have federal circuit courts that decide on certain things, and if you don't like the decision, it gets appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court.
In his first term, Laura, there were 64. We have never seen anything like this in American history.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen anything like Donald Trump destroying the Constitution. That's why we're seeing so many court cases.
Incredibly abusive, and Congress ought to end it. And we can end it by just saying no nationwide injunctions by these district courts.
All right, so lawfare again, Rick. Here we go.
I find it so fascinating that they are ostensibly opposed to quote-unquote lawfare, but they are actively attempting to hurt people who disagree with them. They're actively weaponizing the legal system against their political enemies.
I'm so glad that Josh Hawley brought that up. 64 in his last administration, and here we are. We're already at 15. What's the answer to...
Like, why do you think that is, really? You can't be this stupid. You can't. I refuse to believe it.
Get this stopped.
Well, I appreciate the fact that we have a great ecclesia here in the FlashPoint Army because they've been through biblical civics. They know that
biblical civics is a quote-unquote training program that Rick, what's his name? Rick, whatever his name is, Rick something. It's this training program he runs. Rick Green, that's it. I want to say Rick Webb, Rick Perry. Anyway, he runs this training program basically as a nonprofit to train people on how to be Christian nationalists, pretty much.
That this judicial supremacy is the problem. So when you think of the Supreme Court as being supreme, then you'll go to these district judges and ask them to be supreme. So I'm going to disagree with Hawley only in this. I think even the Supreme Court should not be able to bind the whole nation. That's the job of Congress and the president.
No, the Supreme Court exists to uphold the Constitution and stuff. What are you talking about? What is the job of the justice system then? Like, what is the job of the Supreme Court if you believe this? There isn't one. If they're not supposed to, like, uphold the Constitution in legal cases.
Supreme Court should apply what the Congress and the president does to the facts before them, even in their cases. But all of that to say, the answer to your question is the American people have to become civically literate to know the court does not have the final say. Don't go to the court to solve all of your problems. And then the president just has to keep doing what he's doing. He's got to keep saying no to these judges. He's got to get it appealed to the Supreme Court because that's where everybody's going for the answers, even though they shouldn't, as I said. And I believe he's going to win these cases. He's won most of them. He's gotten not really a loss so far. What they've done so far is
No, he's definitely gotten losses, and he has ignored those losses. He has completely ignored the court. That was everybody's worst fear. Like, what is he going to do when the courts decide against him? Are you going to follow the courts? And his answer was no, basically. He said no, pretty much. And then when we were faced with the situation, he refused to follow the courts. He defied the courts and he said, do something about it. In fact, he didn't even comment on it. He just defied the courts. Andrew Jackson is the only other case of that taking place. He wanted to do Trail of Tears. He wanted to mass murder a bunch of Native Americans. And the courts basically said, you can't do that. And he said, the court has made its decision, now let them enforce it. That means, rephrase. So what we're dealing with now is Donald Trump overtly, openly, completely ignoring the Supreme Court. Or not the Supreme Court, but the courts, ignoring the courts.
Giving it back to the district judge. They haven't granted his injunctions that he's asked for. But on these big questions, I believe the Supreme Court is going to end up siding with us. Back to our conversation last night on...
I'm not convinced of that. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to side with Trump, actually. in many things moving forward. I mean, certainly in some, but I suspect that Amy Coney Barrett has woken up from this fever dream that she's lived in up to this point. I suspect that she recognizes how evil Trump is now, based on one clip that I have from her. She's standing there with Trump walking by, and look at the look in her eyes there. You seeing this? Trump walks by, she looks away like she's sad, purses her lips. She doesn't like what's happening right now, in my personal opinion. This didn't go as viral as it should have, in my opinion. That video of her. I get the impression that, I mean, it's still only 5-4, even if Amy Coney Barrett sides against Donald Trump. We still don't have all of the votes that we need. We also need John Roberts to vote against Trump. But I think he's going to have a lot harder time convincing people to vote with him in the Supreme Court moving forward, in my opinion. I think, and I hope you're right about her. Yeah, me too.
The census and challenging those things on the lawfare that's been taking place with regard to how much the deep state should have the power to do. We've already won on Chevron deference and so many of these big cases. So
Chevron deference was really, really terrible. It was basically a case that was overturned, I don't know, months ago, I think, or maybe last year. Anyway, it was Chevron v. United States, I think, or U.S. v. Chevron or something, where the judge in the case from like 1986 or something decided that EPA regulators are allowed to make decisions on how they regulate. And it doesn't have to be passed in Congress like constantly to validate regulations. And that case was basically overturned, which means in practice, the EPA, the FDA, the USDA, and whoever else, whatever other government agencies that regulate, they don't have the full force of the law behind them to regulate anymore. The scientists that they hire to study this shit, they don't have the full support anymore of the law. These companies can challenge their decisions in the courts, and now judges can decide. Politicized judges, of course, which is bad. It's just eroding the regulatory protections that we have as U.S. citizens more and more and more. And fascinatingly, Neil Gorsuch, his mom was the head of Chevron in the 80s. She was like one of the people on the case in Chevron. And the Chevron case eventually went to the Supreme Court, where Gorsuch ruled on his mom's case. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is.
The answer to your question is, President Trump, stay the course. Keep fighting this. And he's the only guy in the country that has the steadfastness to do what he's doing, to fight on all of these fronts. And it doesn't bother him one bit. He still comes to work with joy. He's still got a bounce in his step. He's still punching every chance that he's getting. Fight on every level. So they picked on the wrong guy here. So they're going to keep bringing it. We need to keep pushing back.
Let me show you a little bit of the clip. Maybe you didn't know all of this going on. Here's a little bit from Vox about the judges that are pushing back on Trump. Watch.
Frankly, there's the broader issue of all these judges' injunctions, and then decisions like Judge Boasberg, what he's trying to do and how that case is working. We're going to have hearings on all of that, because particularly when you look at Judge Boasberg, it starts to look like this is getting totally political from this guy, particularly when you...
I assume they're attacking the foundation of the judicial system here. I'm not sure who Boasberg is, but I'm guessing it's a judge that ruled against Donald Trump, presumably.
Remember, he's also the judge who was part of the whole Trump-Russia FISA court, granting those warrants that allowed the Comey FBI to spy on President Trump's campaign.
That is not what happened. That's not even close to what happened. This is completely fictitious. He's mixing up stories. This isn't like even a little bit representative, or like he's just mistaken in addition to flat out lying. But whatever. They didn't spy on his campaign. That is not what happened.
So we're going to look at that issue as well, but hopefully we can get that bill passed next week on the House floor, move it to the Senate, hopefully get it to the president's desk.
All right, Lance, when I look at this, this is why we did not add extra guests tonight, because we really need to spend a little bit of time here and understand what we're dealing with here. If you do not understand what we're seeing here with the judges, with this signal snafu, with Hegseth, all of these things, they're trying the same game plan, Lance, that we're seeing this over and over again.
It's a ploy. They're trying to take advantage of you. Come on, people. Really. They live in conspiracy land 24/7. And most of these people, I don't think maybe they do believe it, most of them, but I don't think that Lance Wallnau believes half the shit he says. Not for a second. Lance Wallnau or Gene Bailey or Rick Green. Everybody on screen here, I think they're just lying fools. You know what though? Maybe Hank Kunneman believes the shit that he says. That's possible, I suppose.
Now, my question to you is, isn't it interesting, these Obama-era judges, most of them I think were Obama-era.
No, they were Bush-era, actually. Bush-era judges, and many of them were actually appointed by Donald Trump himself, as a matter of fact.
They're following political lines here. They must be getting pressure from the deep state. I mean, that's
oh, please.
It's the only thing that makes sense, because some of the stuff just is crazy.
If something happens that I don't agree with, it's always some secret cabal that's like taking control of everything and manipulating. Blah, blah, blah. It is always a conspiracy with these people. My God.
They're not getting pressure from the deep state. They're willing participants. These are activist judges. You look at their track record. You look at their history.
They look at their history. They stand for the Constitution more often than not. We can't abide by that.
Their affiliation, their political affiliations. They even have family members that are in some way making money.
Like literally everybody has family members that are in some way associated with the Democratic and the Republican Party. Everybody, okay? Aside from that, judges and lawyers, particularly lawyers. I mean, you have to start out as a lawyer to be a judge, of course. So I'll say lawyers. All are trained on how to not be political, on how to handle things in a nonpartisan, honest, straightforward way, and how to view things from other perspectives. That's part of the deal. And these people on screen know that, especially Rick Green. He was a judge. Rick Green, of all people, knows exactly what he's saying and doing and how it's bullshit and destructive to society.
Off of affiliation with the left wing. So the way the left approaches this, and this is it's the oddity about us. Churches, we all know we love each other, but churches in a community don't work together. Conservative groups, for the most part, are not collectives. They don't like working like communists, working as a group. They like.
Oh, please, dude. Communists are working as a group secretly to undermine the U.S. government? Give it a rest. Really? Jesus Christ, how can people stand to watch this? The same exact argument and shit on every issue. Yeah, well, I watched Laura Ingraham, and this is what's fascinating. Earlier, I talked about, like, media training, how to kind of get people, if you will, how to convince them that you are right and everyone else is lying or whatever. And you need to twist a situation into something that it's not, and then give anecdotes, statistics, and sound bites. Laura Ingraham, for example, I found is just soundbite after soundbite after soundbite. It's like somebody is sitting around coming up with advertising terms that are most advantageous to the situation. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Mad Men. I'm going through Mad Men right now. These people in Mad Men, like this guy, it's set in the 1950s, 1960s, and he's an advertising executive or whatever. Like, he helps, for example, Nerf, it's Nerf or nothing, He would be the guy that comes up with these terms. Or I don't know what other terms there are, like what other advertising slogans. Just do it, Nike, or Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. Diamonds are forever. Finger licking good, KFC. These slogans are kind of invented by advertising executives in a room. And it seems to me that Republican operatives, Republicans basically have a gigantic advertising department that sits around coming up with sound bites like this. And that's pretty much all that Laura Ingraham does. That's her entire program, is just repeating these sound bites. You know, like, if we don't improve, or if we don't loosen doctor malpractice laws, then women will continue to live too far away from obstetricians. You know, 7% of women are 100 miles away from their closest obstetrician. That's like keeping your Band-Aids at your friend's house. That is the soundbite. Like keeping Band-Aids at your friend's house. And they just come up with all of these sound bites. Like, I've watched Laura Ingraham, and the first 10 minutes of her show, the monologue normally, is just soundbite after soundbite after soundbite like that. And it's like you're being pummeled with lies 24/7 when you're a Republican. You're listening to Fox News. It is nothing but lie after propagandistic framing after soundbite. There's no end to it. It's wild. You wonder how people get to the point where they believe that, like, I don't know, that JFK was like murdered by Q, and that JFK Jr. is going to return and run as president under Donald Trump or whatever. That's how. Constant sound bites being shoved into their brains 24/7 with no relief.
Like individuality. But this is where the left, unfortunately, we have to...
You know what? Let me see if I can find an example of it. Hold up. Why the Left Lies, aired July 6th, 2020. Listen to this barrage of sound bites that are nonstop.
All right, Democrats have reached, I think, the obvious conclusion that their only path, sure path to victory, is the burn it all down approach of the neo-Bolsheviks on the streets.
Call them communists and claim that they're violent and dangerous. It always gets pulled back to that. Also deflecting, pretending that this issue that's happening, that you are perpetrating right now, isn't actually happening, or that it's not your fault, or there's another issue that's way more important.
Joe Biden's team has formed common cause with those who not only seek the destruction of the nuclear family. If you don't believe me, check out BLM's website. They've actually decided that promoting racial hatred is the only way they can win.
Go as far off in La La Land as humanly possible.
They know that Trump's policies, it's obvious, have delivered results for working people of all races, while theirs have largely failed. Now, the left hopes that by inflaming racial division and hiding their candidate, they could avoid a real debate on the issues.
And she slips little things in as though they're factual is another thing I've noticed. Like, she will make a statement that is like innocuous or about something completely unrelated. And in that statement is a bunch of like, it's a massively loaded statement. It's a bunch of stuff that you take for granted or that you take as expected. Like what she said here, one more time.
And hiding their candidate, they could avoid a real debate on the issues.
They're trying to avoid a real debate on the issue is the bottom line here. But she's implying that Biden is like incapable of functioning as a human being all the way back in 2020 because they think he's got dementia or something. It's lie after lie after lie. And it's all sound bites.
So over the weekend, the president responded with two powerful speeches to celebrate our independence and identify the domestic forces now threatening it. His remarks at Mount Rushmore reaffirmed America's identity and inspired millions of Americans who've basically been living in despair because of the 1-2 punch of the virus and the continuing riots.
These radicals would tear down the very heritage for which men gave their lives to.
Dude looked like way younger then. Wow. You don't even realize how much people age until you like see them from like 10 years ago and compare it to today. That's nuts.
Win the Civil War. They would tear down the principles that propelled the abolition of slavery and ultimately around the world ending an evil institution that had plagued humanity for thousands and thousands of years. Our opponents would tear apart the very documents that Martin Luther King used to express his dream. They would tear down the beliefs, culture, and identity that have made America the most vibrant and tolerant society in the history of the earth. We will proclaim the ideals of the Declaration of Independence.
Really? We will?
And we will never surrender the spirit and the courage and the cause of July 4th, 1776.
Okay.
Upon this ground, we will stand firm and unwavering in the face of lies meant to divide us, demoralize us, and diminish us.
That is literally what is happening right now.
Now, you can always tell how effective one of the president's speeches is by how frenzied the reaction from liberals.
I actually thought it was some fantasy. He's just desperate.
There was a lot about history, about God and our great country, much of it very ominous.
There was no attempt here to use.
Well, I mean, of course they're talking about the speech. It literally had just happened. That's not an indication that they're freaking out or they're frenzied or whatever. But this is yet another soundbite. Democrats are afraid of what's happening, thus reinforcing that we are correct.
Unify the country. It was just a divisive message.
The president threw down the cultural war gauntlet in defense of dead white men.
Inflammatory, hateful, watching it, you realize how disturbed and how disturbing this president really is.
You notice I described liberals, and Kasich and Jennifer Rubin are among them? You bet. Now, if lying was an Olympic sport, these folks would be draped in gold medals. In moments of rare candor, they know that Trump beats Biden hands down on jobs and wages for African Americans.
He really didn't. He didn't at the time. He doesn't now. He never did. But it's just lie after lie after lie, and it's building more lies on top of the ones that she just told. It is so wild to watch somebody lie so much in such a short period of time. And it's not even like, I don't even feel like Laura Ingraham is going anywhere with her lies. It's like she just lays down a set of sound bites and then lays down another set of sound bites that are completely unrelated to each other. She's just repeating every piece of propaganda that has been said in the past week.
Trump beats Biden on education. He favors liberation for parents and students.
This would be the statistics section of the trifecta formula, anecdotes, statistics, sound bites. But her statistics are just lies.
Who are stuck in bad schools. Trump beat Biden on prison reform. Obama and Biden both talked a good game. They didn't get it done.
I mean, this is from 2020, so Biden had like 3 months or something. No, he had 6 months up to that point. He had been in. Biden beat Trump in pretty much every single metric.
And of course, Trump has done something that Biden never did. He has actually hired and promoted African Americans and other minorities across as many businesses.
So another soundbite, and it's kind of shouting out to both anecdotes and statistics incorrectly, just claiming that this happened when it absolutely did not. It's just lie after lie after lie.
Now, where Biden and Democrats are content to patronize African Americans with these meaningless symbolic gestures, conservatives actually believe that minorities want what all people want: a fair chance at prosperity and to pursue their happiness in freedom and safety. Trump knows this is only possible with a vibrant, growing economy where all criminals are prosecuted.
Jesus Christ, dude. Trump knows that we want a good economy. Biden doesn't know that we want a good economy, apparently.
Meanwhile, Biden thinks he can surf to victory on racial anger stoked by mobs, many of whom are white, who would rather see every city in America burn than a second Trump term.
This is a soundbite, what she's laying down here. She's claiming that black people don't care about, if they don't dislike Trump. Black people don't dislike Trump. And the only people protesting in favor of racial groups or whatever are white people. They're the real racists. This is just like not loosening malpractice laws to expand how many doctors are practicing is like keeping your Band-Aids at your friend's house. This is identical to that. This is a soundbite.
Now, this requires a massive effort to lie and defame, one that an honest press would have exposed long ago. Now, as I've said before, instead of covering the Democrats, the media cover for them. Their tactics and their toxic associations I'm talking about. So long as the end game of any activist or politician is to rid America of Trump, the press will excuse all manner of falsehoods, hypocrisy, and even criminality.
Jesus, dude, listen to what is being said right now. This is just so wild. Like I said, this is effectively 30 minutes of propaganda straight. 30 minutes of sound bites, false statistics, and anecdotes that fortify an exception rather than an actual rule. Just absolutely wild to watch. Why the left lies, yeah. Absolutely wild. Anyway, tell me what you think about all this in the comments. I'm honestly fascinated by the media strategy.